I don't. I guess I have, I have a little bit of hearing strain. And right now I have, we saw a girl that's maybe 2 years ago. And she needed something in the house. And I said, like, come on, that's the next hour. I don't want to get involved. No.
And is it showing that they're recharging?
Yeah, the green light comes out.
Are you three texting each other?
All right, good morning to everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to let Rich kick it off, but just so you know, this is a workshop. So we're going to be talking about potential items that we want to collaborate on. This is in line with the strategic direction. We started this about a year ago. We had one workshop. It was very successful. And with that, I'm going to just let Rich kick it off, and then I'll say a few words and pass the mic to Jerry as Jerry Lewis is heading up this initiative for the POA. Here's Rich.
Thanks, Bill, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming this morning. As you know, as Bill just said, this is a collaborative workshop between the POA and the CDD. We have done it before. We're going to continue to do it in the future. It's good that we work together. We're all residents here. We all have common interests, and what we hope to do with these meetings is join our thoughts together so that we can work in a probably more efficient and more effective way for the community. The regular CDD meeting will start at 9:30. So this meeting will just be with the combined POA and the CDD. We cannot meet separately because of sunshine laws. So we all have to be together when we have this kind of meeting. It's the law. It kind of binds our hands a little bit, but it's what we have to do. So with that, I'll pass it over to Jerry Lewis and we can get started.
I'm going to say more. So one of the things that some of you have heard in our POA meetings is at the beginning of the year, we took on a strategic direction. It is not a full strategic and marketing plan, if you will, but we took on a strategic direction trying to define what was it that we want to see as difference. And as we thought about that, there's some key elements. Number one, we wanted to engage the homeowners. We felt that last year, and I don't need to remind too many people of that, there was a tremendous amount of feedback that communication was lacking in some people's opinions. And so we wanted to engage the homeowners in that conversation. We wanted to also address this issue of collaboration. And so as the year began, we all remember, that's when Pat Neal was making the noise about the shopping center. So the collaboration with the community association, in addition to what had already been started with the CDD, was added. So when we look at the three elements that are driving us, it's improved communication by engaging homeowners and collaboration with both the CDD and the community association. As I said, today is about the collaboration between the two boards here. So with that, I'm going to let Jerry take us from what all that means to where we go and what we might be able to focus on. Reminding everybody that last year we focused on parking and traffic. The most significant out of that, as homeowners, the only person that used to get parking and speeding tickets were those homeowners. If a contractor was coming to your home, you got the speeding ticket, you got the parking ticket. We changed that because we worked with the CDD. CDD is responsible for the guard gate and the people who monitor parking, and then obviously traffic compliance is on the POA side. But that was important to some homeowners that said, we just don't think it's right that we're getting those parking and speeding tickets, and that came out of this collaboration. So that's just what we're trying to do is what is it for us the next step. And so with that, I'll let Jerry talk to you a little bit more.
Good morning. So first of all, I'd like to, God, am I being too loud?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm laughing at Luke.
First of all, I'd like to thank the CDD supervisors for joining us today. I have had some conversations with the, some, but not in a joint meeting, CDD supervisors to kind of chat a little bit about this. I think it's important. Collaboration is very important. I also want to thank the board members from the POA for joining us today and the residents. Without your input, we're at a loss. So it's very important, I think, to have that input. So I'm going to start real quickly with our guiding efforts. Collaboration is a word that has been used many, many times over the last 4 months, and I think it is absolutely appropriate. So I'm going to kind of read a quick one on collaboration. Collaboration is a working practice whereby individuals work together, very important, for a common purpose and joint goals to achieve benefits and value for this community. It is not just these boards that need to work together. We need to work together with the residents. Incredibly important. One other word that I haven't heard often is synergy. So synergy is an interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations or agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects or efforts. There's a lot of smart people in this development. There's a lot of smart people on boards, committees, etc. We need more engagement. And we look for the residents to give us that engagement. Sometimes it's challenging engagements, whether it's comments at either one of the board meetings or written words. But the challenges make us better for us. As Rick McCafferty said, we have found the residents and they are us. And he said that in a board meeting, and it's very astute because we're also residents, all of us. In any event, I did a little bit of studying on demographics in this development, or in Venice actually, because I don't have demographics for the development. I'd like to pass that, just chat about that real quickly. First of all, demographics are changing. If there's anything that is constant, it is change. From a business perspective, I learned that early in life. Well, it hasn't changed much because change is constant. So Florida continues to be a positive migration state, so much that Florida is now the third highest state in terms of population with over 21 million full-time residents. We overtook New York about 2 or 3 years ago. That's awesome. Venice has grown from 20,000 residents to 25,000 residents in 10 years, a 25% increase. Doesn't sound like a lot of people. In fact, 25,000 was about how many people were in my neighborhood when I lived in Brooklyn, which has about 3 million residents, by the way, just Brooklyn alone. Over the last 3 years, approximately, VGRC has had a significant turnover with an increase in more than 2-person residences. Meaning, even though we are still a retiree city, there are more and more younger couples coming to Venice. I think that's great. So I'm going to just touch on community reaction a little bit, and then I'm going to open it up to improvement ideas to the entire, both boards, simply because I did write a little bit, but it's only some of my ideas and some ideas of some other folks who have helped me put that together. But I think there's a lot of good ideas, and those are the discussion items, because at the end of the day, improvement is what we need. Engagement, improvement, collaboration, and synergy. So there is a perception difference, if I may, in the common property standards versus resident standards, including maintenance of sidewalks, curbs, roofs, and landscaping. And this is anecdotal because I've only spoken to a few residents, it's some of my own observations, but I think that's something that we need to tackle as a community, because we can't tell the difference of where the property lines end, where the sidewalks end, and they need to be cleaned. As a matter of fact, in bringing some of the sidewalk issues to Keith's attention, did a fabulous job in some of the areas for us. And so thank you, Keith, for that. Much appreciated. Residents are confused. They don't know where to go for what issue. The good news is the intelligentsia, so to speak, is going to be located here pretty shortly thanks to some good collaboration between both boards. Property management will be here soon. I will tell you the contract or the agreement has been signed by both boards, and we will start moving on this quickly, I'm quite sure. Thank you to Mr. Kleinglass.
Wow.
So Steve said something a couple of board meetings ago, and he said, I don't remember what it was in reference to, but it was something along the lines of, how come we don't have enough resident engagement? And actually, Steve pointed it out. He said, look at how many residents are here. I think it was a meeting or two ago. So I think it's partially apathy. I was the poster child for that, to be honest with you, for 17 plus years. But otherwise, they're disengaged from community involvement as evidenced in participation at the POA board meetings and CDD meetings. That's a challenge because we need resident input, as you've heard Bill say and other board members on both boards have said. It's very important. One last comment, and I had this discussion with one of the CDD supervisors early on when we were talking about collaboration, and I said, you know, we need more residents joining committees with varied background, skills, and qualifications. Well, it was pointed out to me, and very accurately, think about what happened with the strategic committee that Ken led and did a great job on, by the way, in my opinion. There were 13, I believe, volunteers from the community, and the committee was consisted of 7 community residents. So there are people out there who are looking to work with us, and we just need more, in my opinion. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to the boards for open discussion on some of the areas, and maybe we can come up with some good ideas on how to resolve some of the issues and move forward in a collaborative, synergistic way.
One of the things you have listed here, Jerry, is a confusion as to what the POA is and what the CDD is. And I guess several times a year, we get resident questions that are more POA related than CDD related. So that certainly is an issue that I would recognize. Now, in our directory, if you read it from cover to cover, it does have an explanation of what the CDD is and what the POA is. But still in all, residents are, many are concerned. And I'll be very honest with you, up until, I took a seat on the board in 2016, I was blending some of those things together as well. I don't know how we do that. We explain it as best we can and direct people to the right folks that can handle their issue, but it still remains, without a doubt.
Well, I would tell you, I think two things will help. Education, which we are trying to put forth social meetings with the residents, explaining the differences. In fact, we've had if I remember correctly, even some of the supervisors here or managers here attend the last meeting that Melissa held. I'm hoping that continues. And the second thing is, I do think a really good move is that the PM organization will be here. Because it's pretty easy to say, oh, it's Keith, it's a Rosetta issue, he's right here. Or if it's a homeowner issue, Keith could say, hey, I guess it can't be Melissa at this point, but Marie's right down the hall. Much easier to handle. So I think that's part of it, Rich. I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's part of it. But I think we have to emphasize the differences so that the residents do get an idea of where to go. Confusion is never good, right?
Something that would have been very helpful, and it's happened a number of times in the past, is the setting of meeting dates. Like the last one, for example, that the Community Association put together, and Melissa was involved. in it as well, conflicted with a major meeting that we had. So as a result, there wasn't a single supervisor that could attend that meeting. I sent an email when that notice came out. I sent an email back to Melissa and said, it's April 11th. We have a meeting with our attorney in the morning. We have a full CDD meeting. There isn't a single one of the supervisors that can attend this. And that was a shame, because I've attended those before, the new homeowner workshops and giving people some information about what goes on in the community. And I thought they've been very helpful. I think that's a good thing to have, but we have to pick dates that work in common for all of us.
One comment that we've tried, and I think to Rich's point, we probably need to do a better job with calendars, sharing those calendars. I can say that the homeowner social that was supposed to be focused on new homeowners should have been scheduled on our calendar, should have been clearly communicated. And then we have what's called HOA managers meetings. Those were being conducted about every 2 to 3 months. And then COVID hit, and then the Blue Stream versus Comcast hit, and then there's a bunch of issues that cause those to become less important. But those meetings are very important, because those meetings do describe what does POA versus what does the CDD do, and we take specific examples. So what I take out of this is that calendar that we have, we'll look at it, we'll put those on the calendar so that they're stipulated, this is when we're gonna have them, because I have to say that when Melissa set the date, I didn't know that you guys had a meeting right on top of it. Normally, if I did, I would say, Melissa, this just doesn't make sense, but there should also be proactive communication. So if Melissa is scheduling a meeting, or the property manager is, then we need to make sure that we're communicating. In here, in the same building, you think it may help, but you're still going to have to communicate. You're still going to have to talk to each other. So that's one of the things we take away.
And there's a need for these meetings, because I think there are residents that feel, oh, we don't have that many new people moving in here, but we don't have any new houses to sell, but it's all resales. But in a given month, I don't know how many new residents come in, but quite a few. And that's going to continue. So if we did something like this maybe 3 times a year, you'd probably in those meetings have a number of brand new people that would be here. So just because we don't have any new houses to sell, that doesn't mean that we are not in flux, because in fact we are.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Jerry, part of our problem is we don't have enough controversial issues. That's the only thing that brings people up.
Yeah, really.
No question.
I think, and maybe that's a good thing.
Let's create a few.
I live in a maintenance-free neighborhood association, a sub-association. And the only time you get complaints is when the lawn company doesn't do something. But it's interesting, you mentioned the Strategic Direction Committee. There were 13 applicants. We chose 7. I think only one of the other 6 ever came to a meeting, and that was once. Of the 7 or 8 meetings we've had as a committee, I think we've had 3 people from the public, from the non-committee members, come to a meeting. And that's a fairly important subject for the community. So it's interesting, people don't participate unless there's something controversial. Maybe that's a good thing, but I don't know how our committee, and you're on it, we've talked a lot about how do we get more engagement in the community, and it's just very difficult.
Well, create controversy.
Well, we can do that.
Well, one of the things I've always talked about, or I felt about on committees, and it was mentioned in here that you have several people on several different committees, same people on many committees. I happen to be one of them. I enjoy it all. What I found is, as you said, it's hard to get people to volunteer. And one of the other things is the number of people on a committee. I always felt that committees should not be 10, 11 people, 9 people. You can't get them, and there's no need to have that. to me, an average of 5 people on a committee, so you can have a majority rule is sufficient. So that's something I think we should look at down the road, of how many people you have on the committee, and maybe it will help us get more members on the committee.
I think that's a good point, Lou, and when we were putting together the finance committee, I was pretty strong about keeping it at 5, because it's easier to get a quorum with the 5, because if it's 7, then you need 4 people, but if it's 5, 3 will do it. And you want the committees to work effectively. But I'll say, the apathy that exists within the community for serving on these committees is a mountain that we have to climb. You know, when we see CDD elections where people run unopposed, or POA elections where people run unopposed, there's 1,377 homes in this community. And as you point out, a number of them are more than two-person homes nowadays. We have plenty of manpower, people power, excuse me. We have plenty of people power in this community. We have loads of people who in their previous lives were very, very, very successful folks. They wouldn't be living here if they weren't. We just got to get them to come out and throw their hat in and be a part of this and be willing to give up their time. I would say the vast majority of the people in the community do not work, at least on a full-time basis. There are some, and I thank you all for your Social Security contributions, those that are still working. But we have a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands. And service to the community is something that should be certainly applauded. And we should never see a seat run unopposed. That really shouldn't happen.
I will tell you, Rich, to that end, one of the things that I engaged Michael Wendroff a bit ago, actually, to be honest with you. And I've been sitting on this for a while because I wanted this team to get together, these boards to get together. In the package is a questionnaire, a resident questionnaire. It's kind of it's a one-pager, it's 3 or 4 questions, pretty easy peasy. I would like to send that out to the residents in this community and see what kind of response we get. Number one, it's a skills assessment, qualifications assessment, and willingness to participate is incredibly important. And so I would like to do that, compile the information, and obviously share it with the CDD board. Because from that, I'm hoping we get at least a significant increase in residents who are willing, with the skill sets that would be very valuable to us, and qualifications that would facilitate, better engagement and better outcomes from the various committees and/or teams that we have. So I'm making that suggestion to these boards and asking for your input on that, please.
I don't think that something like that should go out now and get confused with the survey. I mean, I see your point, but I would do it some other
You
time.
can't hear her.
Okay, timing, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Diane's comment, sorry. I think this one's not dead. So Diane's comment was it may be confusing with the survey now just coming out for the community on the shopping center, that we may want to hold off on that. Doesn't mean that it needs to be for a long period of time. The survey will be completed this week, so we can certainly take that timing into consideration. What are the rest of the CDD board members? You guys have the one pager that Jerry suggested?
The last one,
Any-
yeah, we saw it. I think it's great. I think that if we can get those people who, again, have been successful previously, have expertise that we can use. It's not like we're going to ride them like a pack horse, but we do, well.
You always have a choice
Yes.
whether to respond.
Yeah, I think it's great to get the expertise of the people that live here, because again, as has been stated a few times, we're all residents here. We all want this place to survive. We want it to prosper. And we don't necessarily have to pay for everything. I mean, we have people here who could volunteer their time because they have expertise in certain areas. We're not going to ask anybody to dig holes or plant trees, but we could ask people their thoughts outside of committees. I mean, I think this is a fine list of possibly get community members to say, well, I know something about urban planning. I'd be willing to give you an hour of my time to talk about it. Great.
I was just, excuse me, I was just wondering if you wanted to add in here, would you be willing to serve on a committee? I don't know if that is something that would, you ask them for their help, willing to help the community, and actually, would they be willing to make a commitment?
I think that would be a good addition.
Rich, my experience is 20 years on a homeowners association in Jacksonville, which was only comprised of 810 homes, but we were a working community. People left in the morning, drugstore went up, went down, came home at night, went up, went down. We never saw them. We did all of our HOA meetings at 7 p.m. in the evening. And the response was okay. It wasn't perfect. And I've noticed over the years that I've been here, coming in the meetings at the morning is very compatible to a lot of people. But is there any restriction that not allow the CDD to have, say, once a quarter, an evening meeting to do it? Because I think that even with us, the POA, that we should do that, because like you said, we look out, we see the same faces, because a lot of people, like we said, we're getting newer people in the community, younger people in the community, and it might be an option that we take a look at to increase the awareness of, and people wanting to do meetings.
In our case, I'm not sure, like, that Belinda, the lawyer, would be available in the evening.
Well, that's what I'm
And
wondering.
my guess is if they would be an extra cost.
But we can.
Also, this is a restaurant. This is not a meeting hall.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, on Mondays, it's not open, so that would have to be the day or evening, but, Steve, I'm not sure you'd get, I think we get the same 16 people. God bless you for coming, but.
What you're asking is, is it possible? I don't have an answer for that. If Andy Cohen were here, I would probably have an answer for that. But I will ask him that in supervisor's comments at the end of our CDD meeting today.
It was just a suggestion, but like I said, we had the same problem for 20 years. And as Ken said, the only time we had an overflow crowd when there was a contested item on the agenda that people really had some interest in. And there were very, very few, like a group home wanting to move into our community, and the issue of motorcycles, stuff like that. So
Well, it's human nature.
it is, it is.
So, go ahead.
No, I think there's a reluctancy on the part of some people to get involved because of certain controversial issues. I know I've had certain committees in which people have resigned because they didn't want to offend their neighbors. Okay, and these are driven, and then you have some committees that have very individuals with strong personalities. And the people at this stage in their lives, they don't want to be bothered. Let's face it. They definitely don't want to be bothered. So they can have all the skills and everything else, but they just don't want to be bothered. Now, I was the head of a committee, the oldest skating community in the country, who I'm part of. And Richie's been there, and we consistently held our meetings at night. And when people they came out, we got the attendance level was high. Everyone had an opinion because they spent a lot of money. And I think that would help if we change the focus of, the times when the meetings are. And we paid our professionals to be there. And it's something we'll have to do if you're considering it.
Well, we'll get consideration, maybe once a quarter or something.
Yeah, once a
like that.
quarter, but it makes good comments. It's about making it easy for the residents to attend, if that's our focus.
Well, we're not a working community. I think we can all agree on that. Again, there are a handful of people that do work every day in this community. some of them take the time to come to these meetings anyway, even though they are full-time working or nearly full-time working. I would certainly be willing to try it, but I have to bounce it off Andy and Belinda. We have requirements that the POA, the Community Association, don't have. It's because we're a government entity, and what would be involved in that. But we can ask the question.
It's an interesting comment, one second, Ken, that during the RFP for property management, we had two property management firms ask that question. How many meetings per month, per year do you have at night? So they're giving us their experience. It's happening, so it may be a consideration for us because it is happening in that world, and just something to think about. So we'll look forward to that feedback.
Okay. Bill, I want to ask Keith, you're recording this?
It's on YouTube, yes,
Okay,
sir.
it's on YouTube. Do we know how many hits on YouTube these meetings get?
From about 6, right now there's 7 people watching, and it's usually no more than that.
Okay, and then open after the meeting ends, do we know after how many hits on it?
I haven't explored that to see what, how many people actually go back in and listen to it, but there's a few.
Few.
I've done, when I was away for the summer, I'd zoom in,
Right.
I would come into the meetings and listen. I could see the peak was like 17 people. And then halfway through it dropped down to about
Right.
6.
Right.
But you can track on YouTube.
You
You can
can,
track
right.
the number. And I would go in and look at an older meeting, and if there was a subject of interest to the community, you'd get 100 or so. We would come back and look.
But again, it's because there's something of an issue. And if you, this room, so there's about 15 people here. About
That's on
five,
average.
about 5, if I'm more or less, are regulars. So there are 10 here that came for some reason today, and maybe we could ask one of them, why did you come today?
How about this gentleman right in front?
Why did you come today?
I wanted to see the interaction between the two groups,
Great
Wife kicked
reason,
him out of the house.
great reason.
and that's the secondary.
Well, but you were curious about what was going, that's great that you came.
How about you, sir, in the back?
Same, I wanted to, it's sometimes confusing which committee is doing what, so I wanted to see the communication.
Glad you came.
I had a concern about the pond behind me and I didn't know who to go.
Okay, we're gonna talk about during the CDD meeting. Our engineer will be here at that time as well. And he does have some information. You're talking about the ponds around off Bella Vista or in general?
Just Mestre Place.
On Mesh Street? Okay. Our engineer does have a report on the ponds that he's gonna deliver this morning.
The blue pond,
I'm sorry?
the blue pond, is that gonna be discussed? The pond by the pool.
Pool.
Oh, the one behind the pool?
Yes.
Well, I know he's investigated the ponds that are all of Bella Vista, and he does have a report that he's gonna be giving us.
Excellent.
I think it's worth trying an experiment on an evening meeting. I think what's gonna govern it as all meetings is the interest on what's going on that particular meeting. If it's an interest to people, it doesn't matter if it's in the morning or in the evening, they're here because it's of an interest to them. But I do think it's worth, at least trying one, see what happens.
Jerry, why not add a question to your survey about timing of meetings or something like that may help a little bit with this issue?
Are you more likely to come morning, afternoon, evening?
The other thing that I would mention is that we shouldn't feel alone. Every organization is going through the same struggles that we're going through. We're trying to get people to do things.
One of the things that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just gonna say, we can't meet in the evening because of sunshine. We have to meet in the sunshine.
Oh, turn the lights off.
And my other question is, would it be before or after Wheel of Fortune? Seriously. So,
Don't put us in jeopardy.
so we also have the issue of some large percent of the population here, it could be as high as 60%, I'm not sure anymore, are gone. for a number of months,
Yeah.
anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
So it's not a good idea to hold it.
Well, people are reluctant, I think, to
Sure, that's
join committees for that reason. They say, well, I'm only here for 6 months or 7 or 8 months, and I don't want to be gone, you know. I think it's problematic for some people. I don't know how, you know, when I was thinking about running for the board, you know, that was one of my concerns. And that was allayed by saying, well, you can call into the meetings and then they can vote to let you come into the meeting and participate, and so on. But I think a lot of people are reluctant to commit to something that they can't fulfill.
I think you're right, but I think it's also important that, for lack of a better term, these part-time residents be fully represented. And one of the ways that they can be fully represented is by being on a committee, and then in those off months where they're someplace else. Or, I mean, all of us have vacationed at one time or another and called in from here, there, or whatever, that your life can go on and you can still be a part of these committees. But again, the part-time residents, the snowbirds or whatever you want to call them, need to know that they are fully represented and have them. I mean, I'm looking at a member of the finance committee that's a Canadian. And so it's good to have those folks volunteer.
I
But
think
at the
it's
same
maybe
time,
more-
we passed a resolution that new members of the committee, that we'd be sure that we had enough full-time members that make a quorum. Not excluding part-time people, but trying to make sure that we at least had a quorum, like in the landscape committee is 5 people, that at least 3 of them were full-time members.
Yeah.
That doesn't guarantee they're gonna be here.
And it doesn't.
So it does, you know, I think we do send a mixed message, but that's a legitimate mixed message, in my point.
Well, I think the majority of people are snowbirds, so you have to represent them.
Nobody knows, you know?
Yeah.
I've asked many people, nobody knows how many people are here or aren't.
Okay.
That's true.
You know,
Well-
it could be as high as 50-50, it could be 60-40 either way.
Made it something.
Count the garbage cans, I guess.
Because if it is true, then you're limiting the pool that you want for committees by saying you have to be full-time. You're reducing the number that you're trying
Well,
to get.
We don't say no
Yeah, no,
part-time people, but a minimum of part-time people.
One of the things that's a help, and I think my fellow supervisors will agree, I get emails from people after the meetings, 2 and 3 days after the meetings. They'll refer to the YouTube feed.
Yeah.
And they look at it at their convenience. And I think that's good, because they don't have to be available every Monday at 9:30 in the morning. They can watch it over cocktails if they choose. Yes.
You might want to look at having some of your committee meetings in the evening as well. That might facilitate somebody that works during the day, say, you know, they're going to have this meeting on Monday nights. We've got 3 different places they could meet, and, look at, if you're going to have a CDD, why not have a couple committee meetings in the evening as well?
I think that's an excellent idea, Keith.
Yeah.
See, and we only thought he was a pretty face. I think that's an excellent idea.
We never thought
Thanks, Ken.
Before we make that kind of decision, Rich, maybe we ought to ask the people who are on the current committees how they would feel about meeting in the evening.
Absolutely. I think that's,
Personally, I'm not thrilled with that idea.
okay. Well, I think it goes back to the committees though, and I think we all represent, probably most of us have 2 committees that we are liaisons to.
You could serve beer and wine in the evenings.
We could. But we can ask the question, that's for
This
sure.
gentleman has a question.
Just an observation, given modern technology and the way we're currently conducting meetings, and most people have computers available, why can't we, make these on YouTube or Zoom meetings? So that no matter where you are or where the meeting's conducted, you could still connect and communicate.
The CDD meetings are all on YouTube.
Right.
Ours
We've
are,
been doing that for a
we
while.
do not go YouTube, we go Zoom meetings on ours. And some of the committee meetings are Zoom meetings only. And we provide sufficient numbers wherever you are geographically in the states to be able to dial into that too.
But it's not recorded, Steve, so you can't go back and watch.
No, it is not recorded.
That's why I like the YouTube part of it,
Yeah.
because the YouTube part of it is recorded. You can always go back to it, and it's available
Is there,
whenever,
is there a fee for
at your
that?
convenience.
You can record Zoom meetings.
You can.
Steve, you can record Zoom meetings.
We can, we have not been recording.
And there's a
as far as I know.
security issue that you have to be
So you have
careful.
some reason.
Yeah.
So there, that is one, if you're sharing documents in a recorded Zoom meeting, it can be problematic.
So you made some
Yeah.
determination.
Is there a, Keith, is there a fee for YouTube
No.
recordings and distribution?
No,
Okay,
You pay a fee for Zoom.
yes, we do.
You have an account with Zoom.
Yes.
You watch their ads, that's the fee.
So one of the mainstays of this initiative is community-wide standards. And I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to read something real quickly, and then I'm going to just launch into two quick subjects because we're running out of time, and I don't want to do that. And I think they're worth mentioning because they're pretty strategic. Article 1.15 of the Master Declaration, if you've not read the Master Declaration, but you have insomnia, I'm telling you, it's a great read. Thank you to the attorneys. Defines community-wide standards as the standards of conduct, maintenance, or other activity generally prevailing throughout the property and set forth as part of the rules and regulations. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, some of the residents looked at sidewalks, by way of example, and have said, how come I got a summons and yet there are some common area sidewalks that, actually I said this, I'd have been thrown in jail for. They would have forgotten the fines and Melissa would have put me in handcuffs. But Keith did remedy that very quickly. And again, thank you, Keith, for doing that. I would like us to consider, since sidewalks are common property, though residents are taking care of the sidewalks, I'd like for us to consider utilizing the personnel or the company that the CDD uses to clean sidewalks annually, every 2 years, whatever the timeframes are,
Annually.
to do that through the entire community. I, for one, clean my own. There's a member here a resident here who cleans his. It's immaculate. We could fry eggs on it, okay? And eat them. I am trying to get to his level of cleanliness on my sidewalks. But I'd like us to consider that, and whether that is a CDD function in terms of payment, or it falls on the POA, I don't care. I think there's a little bit of a tax advantage for the CDD to take it on all of it on, from a residential perspective. But I think it mitigates the sidewalk cleaning review, which is subject of many notices and many summonses, and I think would be very helpful for this community. Community-wide standards needs to be employed. So I'd ask us to do that. And last but not least, in terms of community-wide standards, we have separate committees. We have landscaping, I think, Rick, that you are the liaison to, and the POA has an ACC committee that Diane is liaison to on the POA. I would like those two committees to meet together from a collaboration perspective and a synergy perspective. I think there's a lot of very smart people on those committees, very dedicated and well-intentioned. And I think sharing of ideas so that we make this community the gem that it is, further gem, improvement in the gem, is critical. So I'd ask us to consider those two areas.
Comments?
I have questions on the sidewalk one. I think that the two committees is a great idea. I clean my own sidewalk, as many people do. There are some that get notices. A lot of it do because they have snowbirds and or whatever. My concern would be what would be the added cost to the CDD, and if that cost would be added on to the residents. So where I do it, and there's no cost to me, and if the CDD does, and the cost, now all of a sudden I'm paying for something that I can do for nothing. So I just throw that part out.
Well, I'll just say that we're in the process of cleaning all of the sidewalks on CDD property right now. Just signed the
End of May.
end of May, it'll be done. I just signed the payment order for it at the end of the day. So this is the tune of about 12,000, right? And that's what I would call the common sidewalks, not necessarily in the residential areas. So it's an expensive proposition.
Yeah.
Definitely. And if we take that on, then what do we do about roofs? You know, because that's the next thing. Should that become something that's our responsibility? I see it as a homeowner responsibility
Yeah, I
myself.
agree.
Absolutely.
And not a CDD responsibility. It is costly. I think there are provisions for having the work done if the homeowner refuses to do it or just is not responsive to letters and such about the sidewalks and the roofs, and then billing them. You know,
But this is not uncommon, Rich.
No.
Everybody from north knows that. When the city owns your sidewalks, but you're responsible for cleaning them and shoveling them and everything. So
Well, it's the same way with the parkways. The parkway is owned by the CDD, but the homeowner cuts it. Are we gonna cut all the parkways now too?
Or the tree lines, when you say
Sorry,
parkways, the
between the
little strip
sidewalk
between
and
the sidewalk and curb.
I see, that's homeowner.
That's,
certainly
it's a
homeowner.
slippery slope, Jerry. I don't, I'm glad to hear that you don't care if the POA pays for it or the CDD. I'd vote for having the POA pay for it. And I know it all comes out of the same pocket. I know you're going there.
It's a little, well, I'm glad you know, it's a little consequence, by the way. I just did a quick math, and I hope I'm not wrong, and I did very quick math. This is $10 per year per residence. It's
I
$1,300.
don't believe that.
But I'm
I
assuming.
can't get mine down to $10.
No, I know
If you will
you
do it for $10.
No, I know you can't, and I made an assumption that the common property was about the same as the residential property in terms of,
Not even close.
Much. There's more than 11 miles of roadway.
Yep.
We're talking about the sidewalk areas coming down Veneto, into the main entrance. But we're not talking about going up and down the streets.
I understand.
And you have sidewalks on both sides of the street, so that's multiple, it's not just the length of the roads, you gotta double that for all the residential areas.
It's not just the sidewalk, it's also the gutter.
Sure is.
The gutters, I mean, we often forget, but the gutters are supposed to be cleaned up.
Absolutely. And I know 2 residents that absolutely do it, for sure. Anyway, I think it should be considered. I think we should get an estimate on it, and I don't think we should be doing roofs. That's that's private property. And I don't think we should be cutting the grass. That wasn't the intent.
No.
The focus was the streets, the sidewalks, that's all it was. So I think it's worth a look-see.
You know what might be worth a look-see? I remember several years ago, there was a company that gave a bid for trimming the live oaks, I think it was, or the Lagusha, or something. And it was a community-wide price. So people who wanted to jump on that, they could get that work done at a community price. Perhaps, a vendor would be willing to give a community price, and homeowners could say, for $125, he's gonna come by and do my sidewalks. I paid the last guy $250. That's something that perhaps you'd want to investigate a little bit.
So that would be an opt-in? So you're suggesting it would be community-wide opt-in as
Right.
opposed to
We've
mandated, assessed? Okay.
Yeah, we've cut a deal with Immaculate Exteriors.
Yeah.
And they will, because they're gonna be doing multiple sidewalks, and that's where the money is. They will do it for X dollars, which will probably be less than if I call separately and pay $250 to have it done. They'll probably do it.
When the Washingtonians' homes were taken out, that was an opt-in.
Yeah.
And we still have probably 150, 200 Washingtonians, but there were 500 removed.
That's true.
So that was one example of that. Okay.
Something that's not on the agenda, but we're getting close to time. I have a request to the POA. like to see some netting or whatever put around the porta potties. Netting. Yeah, something to block the, as we come into the community, we're gonna have Comcast working here for the next year, right? The porta potties in the parking lot, I think, are a little intrusive. And I think that if some sort of a privacy fence could be put around, a simple thing, just so that we don't have to know that they're there. I mean, we know they're there, but we don't have to see them.
Okay,
I got
fair
it.
enough.
Okay, thanks.
I got it. I didn't know this.
I didn't know.
You didn't notice? Oh, okay. You will now.
You will.
Yeah. Rich, I actually thought they were gonna be hidden,
Yeah,
on the other side of the, Welcome Center.
okay.
So you wouldn't see them.
Yeah.
So I'll address that. I have a meeting at 8:30 tomorrow morning, and I assure you
Thank you very much.
with dispatch.
And just so everybody knows, I will publish basic minutes because we do need to do that for our meeting. And so I will publish those and I'll send them to Belinda and you guys can decide. But we will send those out as a POA set of minutes from this meeting.
I'll just, one more comment. I think it was great to get the notice that the survey is coming out, because lots of times there'll be a lot of emails that are not legit. And if I see something, where I've won $50 from Home Depot, I know it's nonsense and I just delete it. But getting the heads up, expect this coming out on the 25th of the month, and this is what it's coming from. I think that's a big help to the entire community. So rather than just deleting that email, they will open it and they will answer that survey. So.
And those
Good
that
idea.
have not, just so you know, those that have not answered the survey will get a reminder on Wednesday.
The survey went out at 7 this morning.
So,
Yeah.
so there will be reminders sent that says, if you still want to respond, the survey will be open. Just as a reminder to those, so it's automatic. Whoever has answered will not receive it, but if you have not answered, that reminder will go out. That was one of the suggestions from the survey company.
Good idea.
Okay?
And last but not least, I would ask for your help and support in setting up the landscaping ACC meeting, joint meeting.
Okay.
I know we can do it via, not Zoom, but conference call for those who cannot attend, as we had discussed. So if Rick and I can kind of get together and Diane, get that set up, that would be awesome.
Okay, just to eliminate the middleman, if you spoke directly to Rick, that would be the easiest way to do it, because we can't talk to each other.
I got
Thank you.
Not
We
friends.
can.
We can.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Second. Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody in here who has hearing aids on? I need